Aloha everyone! Welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, hi. If you're old, hello. So if you watched our last video, which was a tour of our whole property, you saw that at the very end we went to the very back of the property to show you guys what we had going on, which is a completely new project from what we've been working on the past 7 years. And here I am in the back on our brand new orchard. Now we asked you guys to guess what kind of orchard you thought this was, and if you guessed citrus, you are correct. Woohoo! I said boo. Woohoo! This may not look like a citrus orchard when you are just looking at it, because there's basically hundreds of other species of plants planted here. Most of them unintentionally, but some of them were planted very intentionally. And it's a brand new way of growing plants that we are experimenting with. And we just want to talk to you guys about that today in this video. So we started this project in early spring of this year and finished planting everything by late spring. And now it's end of summer and it's been about 4 months since everything's just been growing. And in that time we haven't intervened with anything, we haven't pruned anything back, we haven't fertilized anything. It's all just left kind of to its own devices. All the plants that we planted intentionally, and also all the weeds that came out, we're just letting them grow. So this project is totally different from what we've been doing on the rest of the property. It is planned out very intentionally. It is very structured and methodical, and we're really excited to see what results we get and compare them to the rest of the property, which was planted out a little bit more randomly.
Oh, we can get both of these. Woo! So our yard is pretty much full, and I didn't ever imagine that we'd add to it, but after just finding out about Syntropic Agroforestry, I really got interested in it, and I did some work for a friend, and just doing that whole project made me want to do something here. And at the same time, I had this vision of like a lemonade stand, but also like fruit stand and stuff, you know, selling at farmers markets. So this whole thing is kind of based around that theme. It's like lemonade, and then we've got like all different types of oranges and tangerines. So it's basically all citrus. And then we've also planted things like ginger and turmeric and sugarcane to like be additions to that. That was the vision, and I designed this. I wrote down all the plants that I wanted, and then kind of figured out the assortment, how they were gonna be planted in proximity to each other. And so that's what we got now. It's a pretty small area. We were able to fit 20 trees though, which was pretty good, and we got a good variety. Everything's kind of different. So the area we decided to plant this was a lot of dead ohia trees. They were infected with rot, and there were some other weed trees. So to clear, I just used the tractor for some, just to plow over anything small, and then came in with a chainsaw. I really wanted a blank slate because in our other areas we planted, we ended up with a lot of dead ohias, and now it's really hard to drop those trees without hitting stuff that we planted. So that was one thing I learned from my past plantings, is might be good just to get rid of the trees.
All right, so right now I'm standing in between two of the rows, and if you can see behind me this way, the whole row is like covered in weeds. And every time we come back here to like check on the plants, I tell Michael, like, shouldn't we like pull these weeds out? Like they're scratching my legs, whatever. He said, no, we're leaving the weeds here. And the reason why is because we need as much plant material to grow and collect that sunlight from the beautiful sun and create energy and feed it back into the soil. So we're trying to basically make this soil more alive, because once everything got cleared out, it was just plain soil and cinder. So now we need to bring life back into it, and the way to do that is to just let life grow on it and let those microbes get in there and do their thing.
So right here is one of our citrus trees. It's a Fisher navel, and it's surrounded by just other plants here. Right here we got some mulch crops, crotalaria, and they pretty much line this whole bed. Then in the main row we have cassava and sugarcane in here. The other thing we planted in here was kabocha squash, which was kind of an accident. It came up in our chicken compost, our chicken manure compost from our chicken house. When we used the compost to plant the trees and stuff, it just started sprouting up everywhere. And what me and my nephew Isaiah did, we went and we kind of just gathered all those ones that had sprouted and we put them in this line. So they were in line with all the trees, the sugarcane, the cassava, kind of alternating throughout there. So what we ended up with was tons of pumpkin. And also another thing it did was help shade the ground, because there's just vines just went everywhere from these two rows.
All right, so right here we have one of the citrus tree rows, and what we have is each citrus tree planted about 10 feet apart, and in between that we have a banana, and then next to the bananas we have ginger, and then next to the ginger we have tomatoes, and there are cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes. And from here we've been able to harvest so many cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes that we were like overflowing with them. So we pretty much eat them all the time. And this row is different from the other rows because instead of growing the mulch crops like right along the rows, like on the borders, we instead just put mulch over the whole thing, the county mulch. And it's gonna just kind of be an experiment to see what it's like. Yeah, so we were taking advantage of like that niche in time to grow these tomatoes. So once these bananas get bigger, it's gonna shade out the tomatoes and we'll just phase them out. So right now we're just kind of like gorging ourselves on tomatoes while we can. And then once the bananas get tall, the tomatoes will go. And then underneath those bananas we'll still have those ginger plants growing, and of course the citrus trees still growing.
So this is one of our mulch rows, and in here for sort of like a longer term mulch crop I have Glaracidia, and then my shorter ones is like pigeon pea. This is a border of lemongrass around this row. The vision in the future is just this whole lemongrass row just spilling over and kind of like shading the ground next to it so like the weeds don't pop up through there, and then just using the grass as like a cover for the soil. Right here is one of the papayas that we put in the mulch row. It's just gonna probably live here for like 2 years and then get phased out. We also plan on putting pineapples in this row, which will only be there for about a year or two. So one thing I've learned from the past, especially with citrus, is to always cut your fruit off of like really young trees, like a year, 2 years. Just cut it all off, because it's just not worth it. The trees will suffer, they won't grow as well, and it's just gonna be long-term bad for the plant. And so what you can do, just if it sets fruit, just cut it off. I plan to wait at least 3 years until we let fruit grow on these trees. That way they'll be nice and big, and when we do actually get fruit, it'll be a lot and the tree can handle it. But just a good tip for y'all. So we just had to take a little break because Milo, our son, was hungry. While Paulina was nursing him, I started to do a little pruning. You know, this is the first time we've done any pruning here, so it was a little bit different than what I'm used to. Instead of like chop and drop you always hear, this is more of like prune in place. So everything is laid down really neat, organized, keep everything organized. And when you prune, it's a good idea, I think, to make clean cuts. So like with pruners or saw, it's such a small amount, but they'll grow back faster once you cut it. So this is kind of random, but the other day we harvested some kalo and I have some keikis from it. This right here is the spot where I planned on putting the pineapples. These have similar growing space and time actually too. So what we're gonna do is just put these where I was gonna put the pineapples. You can see I've cleared out some space here. Cut some of this down. So I'm just gonna put them in here. I think I'm going to plant 2. Wow, you can see already like some roots growing around here. So that's like the beauty of this system. You can plant anything together, you know, as long as you have the time and the space for it. You're all set. These ones are already cut before, so there's not much. Nice.
Alright, so that's it for this video, but we do intend for this to be kind of like an ongoing series. Obviously, we're just in the very beginning stages, just 4 months into the growth. So as the years go on, we want to just document the progress, how things are going, what we're finding is really successful, what kind of mistakes we're making along the way, and just take you guys along. So we do intend for this to be an interactive series. So as we post videos, definitely comment down below questions that you have. So every question that you guys post, we will answer or just address it in the next video. Subscribe if you want to keep up with this specific project. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.